So, good evening, everybody. I will read out the chairman's introduction and then we'll begin through the agenda items for the meeting this evening. So, this is a meeting of the council held in public. It is not a public meeting. There is no fire drill planned, so if the fire alarm sounds, please leave by the exit nearest the large screen at the front of the room and proceed down the fire exit to the courtyard. Once it is safe to return, councillors will receive a text message. Officers will also advise when it is safe to return to the meeting. We are recording the meeting this evening using our webcasting system. The webcast will be transmitted live and will also be available on the council's website following the meeting. All mobile devices should be switched off or set to silent so that the meeting is not interrupted by ringtones. So, moving on to agenda item 1, apologies for absence. Suzanne, do we have any apologies for absence?
We have apologies from Councillor Robbins and Councillor Westwick.
Thank you, Suzanne. Agenda item 2. Oh, Councillor Sergeant.
Councillor Turner.
Councillor Turner as well.
Yeah, Councillor Turner. I didn't think Councillor Turner was a member of the committee.
Okay. We'll pick that up. But thank you, Councillor Sergeant. Agenda item 2, declarations of interest. Are there any members that like to declare an interest in any of the items to be discussed this evening? That's no declarations. Agenda item 3, minutes, confirmation of the minutes of the licensing committee held on the 4th of March 2025. So we'll do the vote for the formality. So all those in favour of the minutes from the 4th of March? Lovely. And abstentions? Lovely. And that's, none against. And then, yes, yeah, please do. Well, thank you for raising that, Keith. I'm sure that'll be noted, and that's something we'll take back. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we'll make sure that's double checked. So, of course, all the meetings are obviously publicly available, and the agendas are made public. But thanks for raising that, Keith. We'll take that back to make sure you make sure you are formally invited to every meeting and given good notice.
Yeah, many apologies. I don't know why, but I will investigate.
Thank you. That's I'm all noting. We'll take that away.
Yeah.
So, moving on to agenda item 4, minutes of subcommittees. So, to note the minutes of the miscellaneous licensing subcommittee meeting held on the 14th of May 2025 and the Licensing Act 2003 subcommittee meeting held on the 15th of May 2025. Is there any comments on those? I know those are just for noting. So, I think you'll count those as noted. And continue to move on to agenda item 5. Proposed consultation questions for the Hackney Carriage and private hire licensing policy. So, Alex, over to you to present your report.
Thank you, Chair. So, this report seeks members' approval for the proposed consultation questions regarding the introduction of the Basildon Borough Council Hackney Carriage and private hire licensing policy. So, currently the Council maintains several individual policies relating to various aspects of taxi licensing, which are routinely reviewed and updated with members' approval. The proposed draft policy, previously endorsed by the Licensing Committee for consultation, consolidates all these individual policies into one single comprehensive document and outlines a unified policy approach. So, just to give you some background, in July 2020, the Department of Transport published its statutory taxi and private hire vehicle standards. The current draft policy integrates all relevant policies into one publicly accessible and cohesive document, streamlining procedures for taxi and private hire vehicle licensing. The licensing authority is expected to consult on proposed changes to licensing rules that may significantly impact passengers and all the trade. This consultation should not only be for the taxi and private hire vehicle sectors, but also for the broader community of service users. Accordingly, this review will involve consultation with interested parties, including licence holders, their representatives and the general public. Consultation also provides an opportunity to assess the policy in light of the Department of Transport's taxi and private hire vehicle licensing best practice guidance, which was published in November 23. Regular policy reviews are essential to ensure alignment with evolving industry standards and local needs. While licensing policies should be reviewed every 5 years, interim reviews may be warranted in response to significant local developments. The consultation questions have already been shared with trade representatives through the Basden and Taxi Private Hire Consultative Forum, and the proposed consultation questions are shown as enclosure number 2. So as I've said, the trade or the consultative forum have had an opportunity to feed in to these questions, and they will form part of the consultation for the full public consultations. They will be consulted on that. Consultation period we're proposing will last for 8 weeks. The consultation strategy is shown as enclosure number 1, and the consultation survey link and QR code, which will be sent out by email and mail along with the draft policy, is shown there. The policy will be in the current policy format and branding. Following this, the responses will be reviewed and any necessary amendments to the draft policy will be made. The final report, including recommendations, will then be presented to the Licensing Committee for approval and adoption. So the recommendations are that the members note the contents of the report and consider the proposed consultation questions and agree the implementation of the consultation survey. It's the end of my report, Chair.
Thank you for that, Alex. So do any members have any comments or questions they'd like to raise? So I'll go to Councillor Lawrence first and then you, Councillor Sargent, afterwards. So over to you, Danny.
Thank you, Chair. I note the consultation. I can't see the policy in the background papers. There's no link to it, but the questions for the policy are there, but the policy's not there for us to know what you want to change or what you want to consult on. So, but can someone help with that? I'm sure I'm not the only one.
So the link is in the background papers. It's Basden Council agenda for the Licensing Committee, Wednesday, 10th of November 2021. The draft policy is in that link.
Is that helpful, Councillor Lawrence? I think your question was around you're making sure that people that respond to the consultation have an it's quite clear what they're responding to.
Well, the next follow-on from that is the link doesn't work.
Yeah.
On any of them, on any of the background papers, none of the links work.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I sent them with all hyperlinks in, so they should all work. I will have another attempt at it now and I can send it out. The policy was looked at previously and approved by committee to go out to consultation. These are the questions that we're intending on taking out to the trade. The draft policy will be included with that consultation questions to the trade and to the public and be widely available for them. It is currently in the old policy format, but it combines all of our current conditions together into one document.
So can I ask then that can you go through the questions so we know roughly what you're going to be asking and what it's about?
Yep, I can go through the questions, that's fine.
I think, Alex, if you're able to quickly respond and then you make sure that Councillor Sargent is able to then ask her a question afterwards. I will just say I've clicked on the links myself now and they have clicked through, although, of course, if they haven't worked for some members, and make sure, it's important to make sure they can work for everyone, but, just to say.
Before Alex reads them out, Chairman, I mean, my question was the same because I'm a new member of the committee and, I've come back after many years and clicking on all the links, I know it's obviously an error, a mistake, but nonetheless, I would have liked to have married the questions up to the policy and we can't do that this evening. So, obviously, it's going to take Alex some time now to put them in a bit of context, if she wouldn't mind for us, please. Thank you.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, obviously, I apologise for the links not working. They were working when I sent the report through and it was working on the system. I don't understand why it's not when it's been published. They are readily available on the council website, so they are available to look back on that date. So question one is obviously, why are they on what? For what reason are they responding? Are they responding as part of the trade or travelling public or other? The next question is obviously looking at the document as a whole and whether it's clear and easy to understand. It's a standard question that we would ask in relation to consultation to policy. The amendments to highlighted in Appendix E of the Hackney Carriage and Private Hire driver licence conditions, that amendment was in relation to, sorry, just trying to pull it up. That amendment was in relation to changing so that it was allowing written notification of convictions, points, etc. in writing within a specified time. Bear with me, I'm just trying to pull up the report as a whole. Sorry, I have got the report, but draft policy just takes me some time to get to Appendix E on there. So Appendix E, again, like I says, it states, shall notify the licensing authority of any change of his home address within 7 days in writing to licensing@basildon.gov.uk. So we've included the email address for that section of Section E. We've included the email address in writing without any due delay of any changes in medical condition. We've included the email address for if they've been arrested. We've included the email address if they've been charged or summoned for any criminal offences. We've included the email address for any cautions or convictions. Again, the email address for any fixed penalty notices. The email address to any proceedings resulting in no further action. And in the event of conviction, again, an email address of licensing@basildon.gov.uk. Okay, that's that for question number 3. Question number 4 is obviously linked to question number 3, so if there's any disagreements with that. Question number 5 in 6.2 of the policy is relating to grandfather rights in medical conditions. So there is some medical conditions that have grandfather rights if they have been hold a licence since, I think it's over 25 years. They are exempt from passing part of the council's medical exemption, medical requirements. This would be to remove that grandfather rights. It's mainly in relation to eyesight testing.
Councillor Sergeant.
There's some new councillors here this evening. Would you briefly explain grandfather rights? Because I'm sure they're not really known.
Yeah, so grandfather rights, if they've held a licence for a certain number of years, it depends on sort of what the grandfather rights are for. So we have got grandfather rights in relation to licences for vehicles as well as driver's licences. So but in this particular case, we have a Group 2 medical they have to pass. There are medical exemptions for Group 2 medicals in relation to those that have held a licence for a number of years. The request for this is to remove that grandfather right, because that for us is in relation to eyesight.
Yes, Keith.
Sorry, how many drivers would be affected by that? Are you aware? And has the DVLA changed their policy on that, or is it just Basildon Council bringing that in?
It's not just Basildon Council. There are other councils that have done this and removed the grandfather rights in relation to medical conditions. I believe the DVLA still remains the same, and I think that only probably affects maybe 1 or 2 drivers. Most of those have now retired that were affecting it previously back in 2020 and 2021 when we looked at this part of the section. But they will have their say in the consultation if they do not wish that grandfather right to be removed. So question 6 talks about the application process for the grant of a new Hackney Carriage or private hire driver's licence. So for clarity, our current pre-licensing requirements are that drivers that wish to be licensed with Basildon Council need to supply an application. With that application, we would like to see an enhanced DBS certificate. We will look for them to pass a Group 2 medical. We will look for them to do driving assessment with an external provider. We look for them to do a passenger assistance training with an external provider. They have a requirement to pass a knowledge test, which includes a topographical part of a knowledge test, which are routes, roads, places of interest, highway code and conditions. They also have to pass a safeguarding and maths test. So it's all about the requirements of the pre-licensing for driver's licensing and putting that question out to the trade and to the general public what they wish to see.
Yes, Councillor Sargent.
I found that very useful, Alex. What might be a good idea, being as it's going out to the public, to put some of those stipulations that you read out, because the public wouldn't know what they are if they're just reading that, and if they're asked, do you agree them? Same with a bit of grandfather rights. If they're explained, then the public can answer correctly in a proper manner.
So I can expand on the questions with an explanation if you prefer. I can put it in the box maybe so that it can be seen prior to them completing that box. If not, I will put it as a separate application. As I said, the link to the draft policy will be in there. The draft policy will sit on the licensing web pages for them to be able to look at the full document. But I understand your point. I can probably make it in there as well. So, yep, I can do that.
Yep, I think that's a very fair point. I think in the interest of intelligent consideration, I'm pleased, Alex, if you have mentioned those explanatory notes to support people to make informed consultation responses. So thank you for that, Councillor Sargent.
It might even take them to the consultation, because sometimes we just look at a consultation and just complete it, whereas you don't always think, oh, what's that about? I'll go to the policy. I mean, obviously the trade will, and people that are very concerned, but other people. So it would be good if they had that in there, then they'd know about it and look to the policy, hopefully, or if not, complete the consultation anyway. Thank you.
Yeah, I can have a look at a link and put it more concise in the questions. I was just conscious of not putting too much information and making the questions too long. But if you think that it's better off that I put more information in there, then I can do that for you. It's fine.
Lovely, thanks for that. Councillor Sargent, is there any further questions or comments you'd like to make? If not, I'll ask if there are any other members of the committee that like to comment. Any other members of the committee, or Keith, Dave, anything you'd like to ask? No? In that case, then, we will move to the recommendations. As Alex mentioned, yet the members note the contents of the report and consider the proposed consultation questions, and to agree the implementation of the consultation survey. So, firstly, all those in favour of recommendation number 1? Lovely, that's unanimous. And then also recommendation 2, all those in favour? Lovely, that's carried unanimously as well. So, moving on to agenda item 6, the final item on the agenda for this evening, out of area private hire operators update. So, Alex, back over to you to present your report.
Thank you. Yeah, unfortunately it's me again. So this report provides an update for members on the current position in relation to the practice of out-of-area private hire vehicles working within the Basildon Borough. particularly those working under national companies. This report provides an overview of the current situation as far as it is known and a summary of the legal position as it currently stands and the proposal to review an unresolved action. Well, obviously this is a new action, not an unresolved action, so sorry for that. Reports have been previously brought before members of the Licensing Committee in 2019, 2020 and most recently in February 24 in relation to the issues surrounding out-of-area private hire operators. The reports were produced to provide information about what the Council would be able to do to support local licensed trade in recognition that out-of-area private hire vehicles working in Basildon undermine the local standards which have been implemented to promote public safety within the borough. A number of actions were taken at the time which were set out within the body of this report. Members are being asked to consider a response to requests to contact with local MPs to support lobbying. So we are not alone in Basildon. We've witnessed an increase of out-of-area private hire vehicles over the past 9 years. Predominantly those vehicles and drivers are licensed by Transport for London and Castle Point and other neighbouring authorities. Situation, again, like I said, is not unique to Basildon and continues to be experienced within other Essex authorities and other local authorities around the country. There are also vehicles and drivers working within the borough under operators licensed from other Essex authorities, and the potential reasons for this trend in recent years have been explained previously and are summarised. Changes implemented under the Deregulation Act of 2015, allowing private hire operators to subcontract their private hire to other private hire operators across local authority boundaries. The expansion in the use of cloud-based apps, which give customers flexibility to make bookings without the need for a telephone or a booking office in the traditional way, or to hold multiple operator offices' details in their phones. Access to large cloud-based operated platforms as well, and the difference in fee levels and more particularly licensing standards between local authority areas mean that private hire drivers and vehicle proprietors are using their discretion to shop around for the best deals. For example, licensing standards for private hire drivers and vehicles in London are very different to those in Basildon. As of June 23, the Department of Transport for London website suggests that around 340 drivers living in Basildon area held a private hire driver's licence with TfL, and a similar position is believed to be replicated in other local authority areas where certain local authorities are issuing significant numbers of licences to drivers and operators predominantly working in other locations. I think one of the biggest ones that you'll probably see in the news will be Wolverhampton. Provided the operators involved in hoping the appropriate trilogy of licences, so this must be a private hire operator, a vehicle and a driver, all must hold their licence with the same local authority. Any cross-border hiring is carried out within the terms of the Deregulation Act and any conditions of licence for the licensing authority. For further details of legal position, they're set out further on in this report, but letters were sent out in 2019 and the responses and actions are put in this report, so you can read those. Letters were also sent in 2020 and again in 24, and a copy of the letter sent in 24 is shown as enclosure number 1. In addition to this, Basildon Council has continued to get on working with cross-border authorisations across in place for Essex. We do that through the Essex Managers Licensing Officers Forum. Luckily this year I'm the chair of that, so hopefully we may be able to progress that a bit further. We've been looking to progress that since 2019. It is proving difficult to get agreements across the Essex authorities. We're also looking at more local cross-border authorisations with other neighbouring authorities while still working on getting the Essex-wide agreement in place. All complaints about out-of-area vehicles, of which we've received 10 so far in 2025, have been investigated by Basildon Council and the local authorities where these vehicles are licensed. These complaints principally relate to vehicles stopping or to either pick up or drop off on the taxi ranks or near stations. All complaints followed up with the relevant operators and local authorities did have pre-bookings in place. The licensing authority had been informed about illegal stopping on ranks, and the drivers involved have been issued with warning letters, and that's from the neighbouring authorities. The prospect of reviewing legislation relating to taxi and private hire It was last proposed in an address to the House of Lords in 2022 in the Queen's speech. Since then, it's not had anything else has come before it until recently, where the National Audit on Group-Based Child Sex Exploitation and Abuse, which investigated the grooming gangs and child sex abuse, was published in June 25. Within this review, there was a dedicated chapter to taxi licensing. This showed in a minority of cases it was found that taxis were used by perpetrators both in meeting victims and to transport them to various locations. The review highlighted that the lack of stringency in licensing procedures enables drivers to obtain licences from boroughs with less rigorous checks, potentially compromising safeguarding measures. Baroness Casey called on the government to address these regulatory loopholes, warning that unscrupulous individuals could exploit the current system by applying for licences in more lenient jurisdictions. So under current legislation, licensed taxis and private hire vehicle drivers are permitted to operate anywhere within England, regardless of where their licence was issued. This has resulted in a concentration of licence holders in certain areas. The Transport Secretary acknowledged the gravity of the issue and affirming the government's commitment to ensuring local authorities comply with these regulations. At the beginning of June, the DfT emailed all local authorities requesting they complete an online survey with around about 200 questions, which was quite weighty to get through in relation to the implementation of the statutory taxi and private hire vehicle standards, which were published in 20, and the best practice guidance, which was issued in November 23. This was a monitoring exercise aimed to determine which recommendations were being followed by local authorities. The email stated that ministers are keen to see all licensing authorities adhere to the recommendations outlined in the guidance, as this would lead to better alignment of licensing standards and reduce the incentives for drivers to obtain licences outside the areas in which they intend to work. We're still waiting for the results of that. That's only just recently closed. So as it stands at the moment, we still sit with legislation that is dated from 1847 and 1976, which doesn't take into account new technologies and the way that the trade is moving forward. What we're requesting, in a nutshell, is that we lobby the MPs yet again for a change in legislation to bring these old, archaic legislations into the modern day era. That's the end of my report. My recommendations are as they note the contents of this report and the steps taken by the officers today, and agree that a letter be sent to the borough's members of Parliament outlining the issues experienced and the results of cross-border hiring and out-of-area private hire operators, and seeking support for lobbying for government for urgent changes to legislation. It's the end of my report. Thanks. Thank you for bearing with me.
Thank you very much for that, Alex. Councillor Lawrence, you have a question or comment you'd like to make?
Yeah, a bit of both, really. As you know, in 2020, we wrote to the MPs. Sadly, during that period, COVID came in, so everything went out the window. 2024, when I was chairman of this committee, we also sent letters off to the MPs, but of course during that time we had a change of government a few months later, so it's all sort of happened the last couple of times since we've sent letters off. I note from the Institute of Licensing report that James Button has done recently regarding the Law Commission and the report that they compiled in 2011, and that they wanted to take forward with a draft bill. It's now sort of 2014 when that report was published. 11 years later, he states that the draft bill still hasn't happened. So whilst we're writing to the MPs about the hiring and all that kind of thing, is it possible that we can look at some of the report and sort of say to them that this bill needs updating and get the government to look at this? Because 2011 today, and as you said, was it 1846 was one of the...
1847 and 1976, yeah.
They were looking at it.
They were looking at it. I agree with you. They were looking at it back in 2012, and then it didn't really move. And then instead what they brought in was the deregulations of 2015.
And in his report here, he was saying that a lot of the things in his report now are still relevant today as they were 12 years ago, and possibly the out-of-board hiring is obviously an add-on to this. So I was just wondering if we can...
Of course, yeah, that's no problem.
Bring your indulgence, Chair.
So yeah, fair point and a good consideration. I think if I might tack on to that as well, if there's a look for any relevant APPGs or select committees, for example, whose business relates to the issue at hand, I think that's a good point raised by Councillor Lawrence, and I think it'd be useful for us to follow up on it.
Are you happy for me to redraft the letter and circulate that for comments rather than it coming back here?
I think that's sensible. Yeah, Alex, if you could circulate the draft to the committee members to feed in, and then we can finalise and issue it. With that, Councillor Sargent.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Alex, I congratulate you on that full and thorough report. It takes us back, even me, to when I sat on this committee when Imelda, Councillor Smith's mother, she actually sent that letter in. She chaired the committee, and we thought at that time, we wonder what we're going to get back. Well, we knew what we were going to get back, but you don't expect it really, you know, X amount of years later. So I congratulate you on that. You've brought all of those things up, you know, particularly about the proper use of taxis, you know, taking teenagers, young girls, children, and all the safeguarding measures that needs to be there. The enhanced DBS checks, I mean, it's all there. All we need now is for someone to look at this and comply with what Basildon and every other council that's asking for this, if they can just do it so that we, you know, we can feel that we've made some ways forward at least after all of these years. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Sargent. I completely agree with everything you've said there. Yes, Councillor Allen.
Have you identified a need for each council having a different licence arrangement? I mean, why can't it just be standardised in the UK, so you wouldn't then have any of this out of area business? It's just, you know, the private hire or the taxis would have a standard UK or England. I suppose the Welsh might want to be different, but at least you know, there's an English standard for this operation.
Yeah, so the national standards from the Department of Transport came in 2020, but it doesn't cover all aspects of licensing, of taxi licensing. It does quite a bit of it. So everyone has to be enhanced DBS, check every 6 months. Well, we've been doing that since 2018. Yeah, when we got everybody onto the update service in 2018, and then it became a national standard in 2020. The NR3, which is the National Fraud sort of agency, we've been putting, you know, drivers that are refused on the NR3 for a number of years. It became a national standard in 2020. So there are some standards in there, but there are obviously some differences, and there are differences across different councils, and they're not a national standard because, again, like we've said, it's an old legislation. That even 1847 Act came in before vehicles were actually invented, I believe. So, you know, when we're looking at certain standards and things, it's a bit more difficult to sort of bring under there. So we have to look at guidance and at the national standards that first brought in 2020. So councils do have the ability to, you know, put in what they think is right for their area and what they do to protect the public. There are some differences. Some councils do offer sort of driver applications that don't do a topographical part, and some do. Some don't do a knowledge test, some do. As that's not really written in legislation, it's actually in the guidance. Councils have their own discretion on that side. They can take account of guidance, but they don't have to follow that side of guidance. and that's where the variation comes. Fee setting, again, it's cost recovery, so we work on working out timesheets and how many hours we spend doing this and this. So some may cost slightly more, depends on the number of vehicles, the number of staff, how much it costs for the office, equipment, things like that. You know, databases, there's a lot of work that goes in behind the scenes of doing these. So there are differences across councils, and I think they are trying to look. They've made a headway forward by doing the national standards in 2020 and updating the best practice guidance, because the last time that was updated was 2011, and then it got updated again in 2023. So they are trying to nationalise it, and that's what they're trying to do with the survey, is to see which councils are following the guidance and the standards and which ones aren't. And I think they'll come back to councils at the end of that survey.
Thank you for that, Alex. Any other, Keith?
Sorry, Alex. The issues that over the grooming gangs, the Rotherhams, etc. We do on our licence a training now and certification. That is part of all new drivers having to pass that. And secondly, sorry, is that now a national policy?
There is information on training within sort of guidance. There is we do safeguarding training and safeguarding tests for all new drivers. The guidance and the guidance from Essex County Council safeguarding experts state that we really should be doing them every 3 years on renewal. And so that's what the policy is looking at. The draft policy will look at doing those on renewal, and we'll look at an online provider. Currently, we'll look at an online provider so that they can just sort of do it in their own time and pass it through there. And it's quite good to have it every 3 years, because there's always changes to, you know, cross county lines. Things change, people change, the way that these grooming gangs work change. So by renewing and reviewing exploitation training and safeguarding training every 3 years, the drivers who are at the forefront are able to see some of these things happening. It's not just about, you know, stopping drivers from, you know, in a very small number of drivers that have committed this that you can see from the report, but our taxi drivers are the eyes and ears of the district. They do see a lot, and I think it's giving them the tools to be able to feel confident in reporting a safeguarding issue that they have seen, or being able to help a member of the public that they feel might need their help. We've had a case recently where, you know, one of our taxi drivers, you know, saw something that he felt needed to be reported and had the confidence to come and talk to us about it. And from there, you know, we spoke to safeguarding, and because it involved children, you know, straight away, that was actioned by our safeguarding team sort of here. But it's not about penalising drivers, it's about them being able to see and understand, because they are an important part of our transport, you know, local transport and local hub, and nighttime economy and daytime. They see more than we do sitting behind my desk. So does that answer the question, Keith, I hope?
Lovely. Thanks for that, Alex. Keith, is there anything further you'd like to say? Any extra comments or questions?
Sorry, was it a national? Is it now a national policy as part of licensing?
I need to double check it. I think it might be in the guidance, not in the national standards, but I will come back to you on that one.
Thanks, Alex. Councillor Sargent.
Is there anything, I can't really see it unless I'm missing it, is there anything about safeguarding within, I know we're talking about a specifics, you know, what we're asking for, you know, to prevent Uber and out of towns, but I mean, Keith's raised an excellent, you know, it's what we don't want to say. Keith said it because he's in the game and he knows what's going on, and it's important that we get those messages across when we are, because it's not just a matter of we don't want these out of towners. There are bigger reasons for not, you know, for that not going on as well. So, I mean, I'm not sure. You're the expert, and you'll cast your eyes as well, Chairman. But if there was something, you know, just on that safeguarding, because I just think it's so important.
I think you're absolutely right, Councillor Sargent. It's about upholding the licensing objectives and making sure we've got high standards, ultimately to ensure the safety of the public, and whether that's children, young people, men, women, young girls, for example. So I think you're absolutely right. Alex, is there anything you'd like to come in?
Yeah, so there is a section within the national guidance that talks about, under driver's licence, talks about safeguarding awareness. So it talks about should consider the role that taxis and private hire vehicles can play in spotting and reporting the abuse, which is what I've just raised. In the case of out of areas, the reason that we're raising safeguarding issues for out of areas is that we are not able currently at this time to sort of stop and investigate an out of area vehicle. So if we have concerns, we've obviously got to stop and wait and email, and if it's on a weekend, so for example we were out on Friday night doing out of hours visits across the district, and we were out until 2 o'clock in the morning that night. If we saw something that might have concerned us, if that driver's from an out of area and we don't have that agreement in, although we can stop and talk to them, they don't have to stick around and talk to us. The only time that they have to stick around and talk to us is when we've gone out nice with police officers driving around the district, and then they will stop and talk to us. So that's what we're looking at in relation to out of area, is the ability to be able to stop and be able to get information out of these drivers, and just check and enforce sort of on that way, and have a little bit more ability to do that in relation to sort of safeguarding. But there is safeguarding, like I said, on the side for our taxi drivers, and it is in the national standards and will be in the guidance as well.
Thanks, Alex. Hopefully that's helpful, Councillor Sargent. Is there anything extra you'd like to say, or any other questions? Oh, lovely. So any other committee members, any questions, comments? Councillor Allen?
Yeah, just to go back on that, in what way is the safeguarding of the other areas, like the Uber and the Castle Point, different from our own? Or is it, are we sort of at the same level on that?
Everyone's different, so I don't know whether some authorities refresh theirs every 3 years like we're intending to, or whether they just do it on a new application. It's each authority has their own way. It would take me quite some time to sort of trail through. I know across Essex we're trying to pioneer as a whole that they're refreshed every 3 years through online training, and that's probably where we are with those. But in relation to TfL, I couldn't tell you if they do it every 3 years or not. I'd have to go looking through their systems, through their licensing requirements.
Okay, thank you. But hopefully that's helpful, Councillor Allen. Unless you've got any other, well, yep, if you like.
Well, the specific is, are we at more danger if I ring up and get an Uber taxi than I would do if I ring up the local taxi? You know, I mean, what's the
Possibly.
So different councils have different pre-licensing requirements. Yeah, so I can't comment on every single council's pre-licensing requirements. We obviously have safeguarding for new drivers. We obviously do knowledge tests. We do enhanced DBSs. We do driving assessments. We're one of the few, I think, that still do driving assessments. But everybody does do passenger assistance training. Everyone does have an enhanced DBS check. Everyone has some form of safeguarding training. It just depends on the specifics to each council.
Councillor Lawrence?
Yeah, just going back to what I was saying earlier, or what Councillor Allen was saying, is that if we can persuade them to do this draft bill, they can look at all that, because it certainly needs updating, doesn't it, Alex? I mean, really, I mean, every council is doing something different, and it just needs a uniformed approach, really.
Yeah, I think quite agree with that, Councillor Lawrence. So, any members of the committee, any questions to the officer on the report? Anything to add? Keith, Dave, anything you'd like to say before we go to the vote? Lovely. In that case, then, to repeat the recommendation. So, recommendation 1 is that members note the contents of the report and the steps taken by officers to date. And the second recommendation on the report is to agree that a letter be sent to the borough's members of Parliament outlining the issues experienced as a result of cross-border hiring and out-of-area private hire operators, and seeking support for lobbying of government for urgent changes to legislation. So all those in favour of recommendation 1? Lovely, that's unanimous. And then all those in favour of recommendation 2? Lovely, that is unanimous as well. So with that brings an end to the business of the meeting this evening. So yeah, we'll now close the meeting and thank everyone for watching and thank everyone for being